Good morning. I am walking one dog this morning. Holly seems to have injured her, probably one of her legs, but maybe something else. She was gimping pretty hard for about 15 minutes last night. It was a struggle to calm the wife down. The dog, Holly, she didn't seem to be. She was very, very eager to have treats. She responded well to treats, but I think she may have pulled something or is otherwise not feeling terribly spry. She's an old lady, so she gets a short walk this morning, and Paddington gets his normal long walk because he is energy boy, and it's next to impossible to drain him of energy, so he gets walk-ins. The smoke is still terrible, stings the eyes. It's going to be another day where it looks like it's pea soup fog. It's absolutely terrible. Oh yeah, it's Tuesday, by the way. Tuesday the 7th. So I was seeing some comments on my video about Facebook, and I think some things deserve a revisit, so we're going to revisit a little bit. Viewpoint. Viewpoint is where you say, I like this or I don't like this. If the government does a restriction based on viewpoint, it is almost certainly going to fail constitutional muster. It will almost certainly be violating someone's First Amendment rights. Almost certainly. Every test that I'm aware of requires the government regulation of speech. They're creeping this morning again. It's freaking terrifying having someone creep up like that. Still going for the garbage. Anyway, I've never seen any government restriction on speech that was not viewpoint neutral last. The only real way that the government can restrict your speech based on viewpoint is if you are speaking on behalf of the government. If you are a government employee, while you're on the clock, they can say, you can't say anything negative about the department or whatever. That's the only thing that I've ever seen, and I've never seen that actually go, but it'd be a different analysis. It wouldn't be a First Amendment analysis. It'd be more of an employment analysis. And your employer can control your actions while you're on the clock. So viewpoint neutral, like say, for example, if the government was allowing people to say, yes, this government agency is amazing, but then they were deleting comments that were saying, no, this government agency is terrible. That would be viewpoint neutral. That's viewpoint restrictions are one of the favorite things that a lot of these auditing channels like to censor comments based on it. The viewpoint. I love this auditor. You'll see those all over the comment section. I hate this auditor. Nope. Gotta delete those. Gotta hide that user from the channel. He's a troll because he doesn't like us. That's viewpoint restriction. Content restriction is kind of the subject matter that you're talking about. That's the content. So, cars. Let's say the government says nobody gets to talk about cars in this forum, or maybe in general. No one gets to talk about cars. Doesn't matter whether you like cars or you hate cars. You can't talk about cars. That's content restriction. And of course, you know, courts will look. If something gets in front of the court will look to see if the government is using that as a ploy to actually do viewpoint restriction. Because, like I said, judges aren't necessarily stupid. Not necessarily. They're probably not stupid. They're probably above average IQ. How far above average? That's where you start wondering. But a court will look at it, and like if let's say a government agency is receiving a lot of negative. He needs to roll his face in the grass. Okay. Let's say the government agency is receiving a lot of negative comments about the government agency, and they say to themselves, we want to stop getting this negative commentary and critique. So we're going to not allow people to talk about us. So you can talk about anything else besides us. Well, a court is going to look at that, and the court's going to say, well, you're doing this actually because of the viewpoints that are being expressed. So this is actually a viewpoint restriction. So it's not going to fly. Now, I'm not entirely sure of what way a court's going to look at a Facebook page. I'm sure they're going to look at the use the government intended for it. Was the government intending on this forum to be something that the government would use to get its opinion out, and it wasn't looking to actually invite criticism and comment? In which case, it would be more likely that it's going to be looked at as a non-public forum, or the court will look at it and say, well, this was actually intended for by the agency or by the whatever governmental unit. It was actually intended for them to allow for contact, for comments, for criticisms, for input from the community, and so it's going to be more of a designated forum. By designated forum, it means that the government opened up a place for people to speak, and it could close that place down. That's part of the beauty of designated forums, is as soon as the government closes it back down, then no one can speak there. But even in a designated or a non-public forum, the government can't have a policy that eliminates comments based on viewpoint. They may be able to have a policy that has a content restriction in a designated forum. Designated and limited public forums they're a little wonky. The courts have kind of vacillated on how to treat limited forums, but a limited forum is basically a designated forum. It's a forum the government has opened up, but the government has opened it up for limited purposes, like to allow a certain speaker or group of speakers to speak, or to allow discussion on particular content. So anyway, the whole reasoning behind my videos is not to say that necessarily the government was right or that the government is right. What I'm saying is that James doesn't know. The first thing that you should do if you think that the government is censoring you on a Facebook page or some similar page is to find out the policy. Ask if the policy, look, I guess, to see if the policy is posted online. If it's not, ask to get a copy of it. If there is no copy of it, ask if there is a policy. If there's no policy, then they're just deleting stuff in a arbitrary and capricious manner, in which case it is almost certainly going to be found constitutionally vague. Almost certainly. So the first step you want to do is find out if there's a policy, and if so, if you can see it. That's always going to be step number one. Step number two is going to be actually to read the policy if you can, or have it explained to you. If it doesn't exist, remember, it's probably, you probably have done your due diligence at that point. If you have a public official saying that there is no policy on their social media platform as far as what comments get deleted or what users get blocked, then you probably won already. But you need to find out first. So you figured out there is a policy. Next, you want to know the contents of the policy. See if there is a policy restricting your speech based on something that you could win on one of the constitutional tests on. And then finally, you want to get access to the actual comments that were deleted, that gave rise to the users being banned or blocked or whatever. And then once you have access to the comments, then you could look at the comments. You could see if it actually does violate any of the stated policies. If it doesn't appear to, then maybe you could convince the court that even though they have a written policy, they're actually enforcing an unwritten, arbitrary policy. Or they're just acting on their own arbitrary whims, I should say, not enforcing a policy, but acting arbitrarily, just deleting comments and blocking users that they don't like. So that, I hope, helps you understand. It wasn't me taking a position that that particular governmental unit isn't violating the law. It's just that James doesn't know. And James doesn't even know how to know. James is the one being arbitrary and capricious, stating that the government is engaging in an unlawful activity without any knowledge, without any understanding of what and how that government is failing to protect your First Amendment rights. And I'd also like to say, I know that my little quick video on, you okay? My little quick video on the apparent hypocrisy of the movement at the same time suggesting that the police aren't doing enough to prevent crime, or that they're not preventing crime, and yet complaining that the police are doing Terry stops on them because they're being suspicious. That is a hypocritical position. I'm not saying that the government shouldn't do Terry stops. And I'm not saying that the government doesn't prevent crime. I'm saying that the position, the stated position, is in itself, it's contradictory. It's like being upset that the government at the same time has cake and doesn't have cake. And then, yes, the police do prevent crime. We know that. I have someone arguing with me that his gun prevents crime. Your gun prevents crime like the police prevent crime. If you pull your gun on someone before you have legal justification to pull your gun, then you've committed a crime and your gun hasn't prevented it. Your legal justification occurs after a crime has been committed. Now, have you prevented future crime? Well, if you believe that you have, then you must also then necessarily believe that the police are preventing future crime when they make an arrest. So, there you go. Anyway, I hope this has been somewhat helpful and somewhat informative and somewhat rambly. I believe it has done all three. Thanks for watching. If you're living in the greater valley, the Sacramento Valley, stay inside today. Man, this is just terrible out here. Stay inside, let your AC filter do its job. Have a great day.